Thank you so much for staying with us on TVC News. Well, we'll begin the second half of this hour in Abuja, where following the January to December budget cycle, President Muhammadu Buhari has now signed the 13.58 trillion naira budget into law. And a breakdown of the approved budget figures show that about 496.5 billion naira was approved for statutory transfers and another 3.3 trillion naira for debt services, while the recurrent expenditure was put at 5.6 trillion naira, with capital expenditure at 4.1 trillion and a fiscal deficit put at 5.2 trillion naira. Well, let's talk about all these numbers, especially as it affects the youth in Nigeria. Joining me live in the studio is a global president ready to lead Africa, Godbless Otubure. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
On the news. So
Happy
what are
New
your
Year,
thoughts?
anyway.
Happy New Year indeed. It's coming in well. But what do you think really about the budget, the new budget, the January to December cycle? What are your thoughts on this, especially moving the country ahead?
So the first thing you want to look at is, so we've now achieved the January to December cycle, which is really commendable. And I think for every country that is fiscally responsible, you want to do that and know that, okay, so this is what I'm doing for this year. But beyond just looking at January to December, we need to look at the performance of the budget. So that's another thing we have to look at. What percentage, whatever we've budgeted, how well has this performed and how has it affected, the lives of the people? But today we're talking about how this affects young people, youths, right? We've talked about a 13-point-something trillion budget. And the statistics I have says that we have just 181 billion that has been earmarked for the Ministry of Sports and Youth. It is not good enough. If you have a demographics that makes up 65% of your population, and then you have what? And then when I try to drill down a bit, I found out that the Ministry of Science and Technology that's headed by ONU is still talking about how they're budgeting for youth's engagement and all of that. But where is the syndication? Because when you look at it, this is the Ministry of Sports and Youth that is responsible for the demographics. But look at what you've given them.
But now that you mention the Ministry of Sports and Youth Development generally, if you have issues, so to speak, now with what was given to the ministry, how would you assess how well the ministry has fared when you talk about what pertains to the youth in Nigeria? So
I think we still have a very wrong definition of how we develop youths in Nigeria. Youth development is not interventions. And I think we have to state that clear. And I'm going to look at the camera and say, youth development is not interventions. You're right it as part of what the country does on a day-to-day basis. Youth development must go into agriculture. It must go into science and technology. It must go into women of faith. It must go into education. So if you are trying to develop the youth, and then we think that if we give monies to maybe the Ministry of Youth and Sport, then we solve the problem, we're wrong. These youths need to be educated first. So far, we haven't fared properly. We haven't fared well.
We can also take this further now to the Ministry of Education. Of
Fantastic.
Course, so if we follow that trend now, are you also not impressed, or do you see us making improvement?
Oh, no, I'm not impressed yet. I don't think there's anybody in this government that is impressed. Everybody is just trying to say, okay, so this is the reality that we find ourselves. We haven't met the United Nations percentage quota for our GDP that we should be put into education. I know there's a governor in one of the southwest states who really gave a lot to education. Check that state in the next 20 or 10, 20 years. They're going to be smarter. They're going to be better. They're going to have more graduates who are filling in positions. So the government of Nigeria, just look at what you read. Just take a look at what you read. Look at debt servicing. Look at the recurrent expenditure. Look at capital expenditure. You cannot have the kind of development that Africa or Nigeria drastically needs if we do not improve on our capital expenditure.
Now, how do you relate this now with the president's New Year message? Of course, he began people have said he was wooing the youth now in the wake of the NSAS protests and all the several agitations that, have been recorded in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So how do you assess his body language now towards what affects the youth?
His body language was good, the message was there, but something that we've seen in this part of the world is that most presidents don't write a speech. They read what people write for them. But I really want to hope, and I believe that, Mr. President, that you believe in what you have said, and we would hold you accountable to it. Was he wooing the youth? Yes, he is wooing us. But what he is giving to the Ministry of Youth and Sport is not enough. Sunday Diary, Honorable Minister, well-intentioned man, is complaining that even the fastest way to get to some of us, which is through sport, what you've budgeted is not enough to take care of the 5 stadiums that we need to renovate and fix. So how do you get these people not to be distracted by drugs and every other thing? We need more money for young people.
Right.
We're not begging for it. We're not begging for it. It is in our best interest as Nigeria to develop our youths and get us better.
All right. God bless Otubure.
Yeah.
We'll end on that note. Thank
Okay.
you very much for your contributions on
Thank you so
TBC
much.
News.
Thank you so much.